The first shot wasn't fired by the aliens, it was us. And that's why they're afraid. Colonel Elias Grayson stood at the helm of humanity's last line of defense, the Ardent Dawn, a warship that could turn a planet to ash in the blink of an eye. He gripped the command console, his knuckles white. His eyes were fixed on the holographic map of Earth and the solar system, every pinpoint of light on that map representing a deadly threat from the stars. The alliance of the Fargarii had sent fleets. Hundreds of them. And they were heading straight for Earth. "Ready the weapons!" Grayson barked, his voice cutting through the silence of the bridge. His crew, his family, moved with practiced urgency. Each person knew their part, their lives, their fates, all intertwined with this final stand. "Yes, Colonel." Lieutenant Kira Draxon, his right hand, activated the weapons systems, her fingers dancing over the touchpad. "All systems are online. We're good to go." Grayson turned sharply, locking eyes with her. "This is it. One shot. Make it count." Kira nodded grimly. She had never seen him like this, focused, but almost too calm for someone facing a war on a scale humanity had never experienced. The Fargarii didn't know what they were walking into. They thought humanity was the weak, chaotic species they had once fought in skirmishes centuries ago. They were wrong. Earth had evolved, adapted, become something they couldn't fathom. Something they couldn't defeat. A flash of blue light erupted from the viewport, and Grayson's heart raced. The alien fleet appeared from the depths of space, massive warships, sleek and menacing, each one brimming with firepower. They were not the invaders humanity had once feared. No, these were desperate conquerors. Their desperation was written in the size of their ships and the fleet they sent. They thought they had crushed Earth. Thought the Federation of Humanity had been scattered and broken. Grayson's lips curled into a thin smile. "You think we're the ones who should fear?" he muttered to himself. "They'll find out what happens when you push humanity too far." A deep rumble filled the ship as the engines powered up, thrusting the Ardent Dawn forward. Grayson stood in front of the main viewport, watching as the enormous Fargarii flagship, *Veradar*, loomed closer. It was massive, dwarfing everything in its path. But to Grayson, it was just another target. "Enemy fleet entering attack range, Colonel," Kira reported, her voice tense. She turned to the tactical officer, whose face had gone pale. "All points covered?" "Yes, ma'am," came the reply. "Their flanks are exposed. We're in range to strike." Grayson straightened. "Then let's show them what a mistake they made." He took one last look at Earth, the blue marble, his home. The place he had sworn to protect. And in that moment, something shifted in him. He wasn't just fighting for Earth anymore. He was fighting for every person who had ever stood in the face of extinction and refused to bow. He was fighting for all the lives that had been lost in the wars before. And for all the lives that had yet to be born. He turned back to the tactical console. "All weapon systems, fire!" The bridge erupted in a cacophony of warning alarms and the deep growl of weaponry coming to life. But this was no ordinary missile launch. This was humanity's message to the galaxy. It was the first shot in a war they would not lose. The Ardent Dawn's main cannon fired, unleashing a concentrated beam of energy that tore through space like a knife through paper. It struck the Veradar dead center, sending shockwaves rippling through its massive hull. The alien ship shuddered, sparks flying from the wounded sections, but it wasn't enough. The ship, as strong as it was, had underestimated the ferocity of human resolve. "Direct hit," Kira reported. "But they're still standing, Colonel." "They won't be for long," Grayson muttered, his eyes narrowing. "Give them everything we've got. Full barrage." The command was simple. Brutal. And the crew obeyed it without hesitation. A series of smaller cannons, built into the sides of the Ardent Dawn, opened fire. Hundreds of missiles and energy blasts rained down on the alien fleet. Some ships were destroyed in a flash of brilliance, while others staggered, their shields flickering under the intensity of the barrage. But it wasn't just the Veradar that they had to worry about. The enemy was clever. They had dispatched smaller, faster ships into their flanks, hoping to catch the Ardent Dawn in a pincer. "Incoming fighters!" the tactical officer shouted, his hands flying over the controls. "They're fast, too fast!" "Intercept them," Grayson ordered, a hard edge to his voice. "Engage evasive maneuvers. Get in close." The Ardent Dawn swerved sharply, dodging the first wave of incoming fire. Grayson's knuckles turned white as he gripped the command seat. His eyes never left the viewscreen, where the small alien fighters weaved in and out of his ship's path. "Targeting systems locked," Kira said, her voice low but steady. "Weapons primed." The bridge held its breath. Grayson's hand clenched into a fist, his mind calculating the next move with precise efficiency. "Fire!" Missiles streaked across the sky, bright flashes of light tearing apart the alien fighters in the blink of an eye. The crew cheered, but Grayson remained silent, his focus unwavering. "Colonel," Kira said, breaking the tension, "we've made a dent in their forces, but it's not enough. We need reinforcements." "We'll get them," Grayson replied, his voice cold. "But not from Earth. Not from anyone else." "What do you mean?" "I've already sent a message. Humanity doesn't need reinforcements." He turned to the crew, his voice a thunderous declaration. "We're about to take this fight to them. And we're not stopping until we've wiped every last one of them off our homeworld." The bridge fell silent. For the first time, a chill ran through the air. The war had truly begun. And humanity, for the first time in centuries, was no longer the underdog. The Ardent Dawn rocked again as another volley of alien fire cracked against its shields, sending ripples through the bridge. Colonel Elias Grayson's eyes flickered to the status board. The damage was minimal, but the relentless alien barrage was beginning to wear down their defenses. He could feel the strain in his chest, a tightening, but he refused to let it show. "Not here. Not now. We're losing momentum," Kira Draxon said, her voice steady, but with an edge of frustration. "Their fighters are relentless. They're picking us apart piece by piece." Grayson leaned over the console, scanning the data flashing before him. The Fargarii fleet wasn't retreating, and they weren't negotiating, they were closing in. Every ship was a threat, and the Ardent Dawn was in their crosshairs. "We need to take out their flagship, or this war is over before it begins," Grayson muttered. "That's the heart of their fleet. If we cut the head off, the body falls." "That's easier said than done," Kira replied, her brow furrowed as she analyzed the enemy movements. "Their shields are too strong, Colonel. They've got an energy core on the Veridar that we can't breach with conventional weapons." Grayson stared at the swirling mass of ships on the view screen. Their enemies were confident. They hadn't expected humanity to fight back with this kind of ferocity. They hadn't counted on the Ardent Dawn or the raw determination of the crew. They were in for a surprise. "We'll need something bigger. Something that'll punch through that core," Grayson said, a spark of inspiration lighting up his thoughts. "Kira, set a course for their fleet's supply lines. We're going after their fuel." Kira's eyes widened. "Sir, you're talking about the main artery of their war effort. If we cut that, their ships lose power, their weapons fail, and they'll be sitting ducks, but so will we." Grayson nodded. "We'll be fighting with one hand tied behind our backs anyway. We either take this chance or we wait for them to bring down the hammer." "I'll take my chances." Without waiting for further objections, Grayson strode to the tactical board, marking coordinates with his fingers. "Prepare a boarding party. I'll lead it personally. If we can get close enough, we'll infiltrate their supply freighters and sabotage their reserves. We hit them where it hurts, then we move in on the flagship. We're in the heart of enemy territory," Kira warned, her gaze flickering between the data and his unshakable determination. "The Veridar has over 300 fighter ships patrolling its perimeter. They won't just let us stroll in and plant explosives." Grayson's eyes hardened. "They won't have a choice. We make them pay for every inch." Kira hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. "Understood. Preparing the boarding pods now." A heavy silence fell over the bridge as the crew worked quickly, running through checks and rechecks. This was no ordinary mission. It was a gamble, a chance for humanity to level the playing field. If they failed, they would be caught in a deadly trap. If they succeeded, they could cripple the Fargarii fleet. The ship lurched again, and Grayson felt his pulse quicken. All crew, brace for impact. We're going in. The ship darted through the debris field, weaving between the flaming wrecks of destroyed enemy ships. A few stray blasts grazed the Ardent Dawn, but the warship's reinforced hull held strong. Grayson's hand gripped the edge of the console, his eyes fixed on the screen. Target acquired, the tactical officer called. Preparing to deploy boarding pods. They'll reach the supply freighter in 3 minutes. Grayson turned to Kira. Ready the troops. This is it. Minutes felt like hours as the ship closed the gap, and then, with a bone-shaking jolt, the boarding pods shot from the Ardent Dawn, streaking through the void toward the enemy's vulnerable target. Grayson, wearing full combat armor, stood at the ready in the command deck. His fingers gripped the pulse rifle, his breath shallow but controlled. The fight was coming, and he wouldn't let anyone else bear the brunt of it. His people. His crew. They all needed him to lead. He wasn't about to falter now. The sound of the boarding pods slamming into the supply freighter echoed through the hull, followed by the sudden, explosive force of their breaches. Grayson's helmet visor flashed to life with a readout of his troops' positions. They were in. Now came the hard part. Move out, Grayson ordered, his voice steady. Clear the corridors. Sabotage the reactor core. We don't have much time. His team moved like a well-oiled machine, rifles raised as they stormed through the dark, metal corridors of the Fargarii freighter. The sharp crackle of their comms filled the air. Enemy contact, 3, maybe 4 on the left side, one soldier reported. Grayson didn't flinch. Focus fire, take them down fast. The first Fargarii warrior rounded the corner, its elongated limbs twitching unnaturally. But before it could react, the team opened fire. The creature let out a shrill screech, its body crumpling under the onslaught. Another 2 appeared behind it, their energy rifles spitting lethal blasts. Grayson ducked, returning fire with deadly accuracy, his pulse rifle sending a steady stream of red energy into their ranks. Clear! Shouted Kira's voice through the comms. Core access secured. We're planting the charges. Grayson scanned the area, making sure no reinforcements were on the way. Good work. Set the timers for 10 minutes, no more. Let's move. He was about to turn when a loud explosion reverberated through the freighter, shaking the walls. A quick look at the readouts confirmed it. Their sabotage was working. The ship's reactors were starting to destabilize. Time to leave, Grayson said. Everyone back to the pods. Now. The crew made their way back through the dark corridors, their escape route set. They didn't know if they'd make it out in time, but there was no turning back. They had one shot. And for humanity's sake, they had to make it count. With the cargo hold's lights flickering, the team rushed to the pods, only to hear a sudden burst of static in their earpieces. Colonel! Kira's voice broke through the chaos. We've got incoming reinforcements. We won't make it back to the ship in time. We'll have to fight through. Grayson's jaw clenched. Then let's make them regret it. They sprinted toward the pods, adrenaline pumping through their veins. The fate of humanity rested on this. This was their moment to prove the galaxy wrong. The Ardent Dawn shuddered once more, the alien reinforcements closing in, but Grayson's eyes didn't leave the countdown clock on his HUD. 10 minutes. They had to survive that long to make their escape, but the sabotage they triggered on the Fargarii supply freighter had set off a chain reaction. The ship's reactor was already unstable, and the clock was ticking faster than they wanted. Colonel, Kira's voice crackled through the comms. We've got a problem. The enemy's pushing forward faster than we thought. We can't outrun them. Grayson's pulse was steady, his thoughts clear. Then we hold them off. We don't let them take a single inch. Understood, Kira replied. There was no hesitation in her voice. She was with him, every step of the way. The corridors of the Fargarii freighter had turned into a war zone. Grayson and his team were pinned down near the main cargo bay, and he could hear the heavy footsteps of the alien soldiers approaching, their alien screeches growing louder. They were closing in. He could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. "We need to create a choke point," Grayson muttered, analyzing the situation. He turned to Sergeant Holt, his most trusted soldier. "Get your team on those doors. We need a barricade. We'll give them hell the second they breach." Holt nodded, his face grim but resolute. "Aye, Colonel." Grayson and Kira moved to the opposite side of the hallway, readying their weapons. "Stay sharp. We can't afford mistakes now." The Fargarii soldiers were relentless. They were smarter than the usual cannon fodder, strategic, coordinated, and ruthless. The team heard the first explosion echo down the hall as the enemy launched their assault. Grayson's eyes flickered to the countdown clock, 5 minutes. The reactor's core was beginning to destabilize faster, but the sound of the Fargarii advancing was even more pressing. Holt's team had done their job. The door was sealed, a reinforced barricade of scrap metal and makeshift devices holding back the enemy for the moment. But Grayson knew it wouldn't hold for long. "Colonel, I'm picking up something," Kira said through his earpiece, her voice tense. "The Verthar is sending reinforcements. Heavy ships. They want to finish us off," Grayson muttered. "No. We'll finish them first." The plan had always been to cripple the Fargarii's supply lines. But this was the final act. They weren't just here to sabotage. They were here to end the war. 2 minutes, Kira said. She sounded calm, but Grayson could hear the edge in her voice. He turned to the others, his crew, his family. "Listen up! We're making our stand here. We hold the line. We die standing or we leave a legacy. No retreat. You hear me?" "Yes, sir!" Holt and the others shouted back in unison, their eyes filled with resolve. The moment the Fargarii broke through, all hell would break loose. Grayson counted the seconds in his head. 2 minutes, then everything would change. The ship's core was almost ready to collapse. They had less than 2 minutes to make sure the Fargarii fleet took the full force of the destruction. The Fargarii soldiers finally arrived at the barricade. A small cluster of them began pounding on the doors with their energy blasters. The force of each blast sent sparks flying, rattling the makeshift barricade. Grayson didn't flinch. His hand tightened on his weapon. A voice in his comms came through with a strange urgency. "Colonel Grayson, do you copy?" He didn't recognize the voice, but it was unmistakable. The tone was rough, hurried, and edged with fear. "This is Colonel Grayson." "Who's this?" "This is Commander Rivas. I'm with the Earth Defense Coalition. We intercepted a transmission. The Verthar has deployed reinforcements. Our fleet's too far out, Colonel. You're on your own." Grayson didn't flinch. The EDF had been more of a hope than a reality, something they had all leaned on, but never truly counted on. The failure of the reinforcements didn't matter. What mattered was the mission. What mattered was Earth. "Understood," Grayson said, his voice hard as iron. "We don't need anyone else. We end this ourselves." The Fargarii were closing in. He could hear their alien chatter growing louder. They were just on the other side of the barricade. Grayson glanced at the clock. 1 minute. The team was ready. They were tired, worn, but they were ready. "Get ready," Grayson ordered, his voice cutting through the noise. "When the door opens, we make them regret ever stepping foot in this sector." The seconds seemed to drag on forever. The doors were almost through. Grayson's breathing slowed, his mind sharpened. He could hear the countdown in his head. 30 seconds. His heart drummed like a war drum. And then, without warning, the barricade blew open. The Fargarii swarmed through, weapons raised. They didn't expect to see humanity standing their ground, firing back with everything they had. "Asterisk fire! Asterisk!" Grayson shouted, and the hallway erupted in a storm of gunfire. The team opened up, energy weapons and pulse rifles cutting through the Fargarii ranks. The aliens were fast, but Grayson's team was faster, more lethal, and more determined. Grayson's rifle barked, sending a Fargarii soldier hurtling backward, the creature's twisted body crumpling to the floor in a heap. He didn't have time to watch the carnage. Another soldier, another target. The fight was brutal, merciless. His focus was razor sharp. *30 seconds*, Kira shouted. *, we have to get out now, *, Holt added. Grayson saw it, the reactor core, flashing red. It was unstable. The countdown was almost over. Retreat! Grayson bellowed. Everyone to the pods, now! With one last look at the hallway, Grayson turned, leading the charge back toward the escape pods. His team followed, moving with precision, every step closer to the end. The ship's core detonated with a deafening explosion that sent shockwaves through the freighter. The lights flickered, and the ship groaned, on the brink of destruction. Grayson and his team reached the pods, securing themselves inside. The doors sealed with a hiss, and the countdown continued on the control panel. The ship's last breath was a deep groan, followed by a final, cataclysmic explosion that tore through the Fargarii fleet. For a long moment, there was nothing but the ringing in his ears and the silence of space. The Ardent Dawn was gone. The Fargarii fleet was shattered. And humanity had sent a message to the galaxy: we are not weak. We are not broken. We will survive. As the escape pod rocketed away, Grayson closed his eyes, knowing that Earth, for the first time in centuries, had won a battle that would define their future.